Just a quick welcome to everyone. I'll give it another minute just to let other attendees join, and then we'll start. Okay, I'm going to make a start because we've just got an hour and we've got a lot to cover. So firstly, welcome. Thank you for joining us. I'm Andy McDonald, the Programme Director of the Offshore Wind Growth Partnership, and we're delighted today to give you more details on the latest opportunities that we've announced in terms of support from the programme. So this is the kind of first set of programmes that we're launching from the 21-22 programme of activity. So today we'll cover two different programmes. We'll cover the Development Grants Funding Call, and we'll cover the Business Transformation West programme as well. And then we'll give you a quick spin through future opportunities that are coming up. Hopefully we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A, but we're always available for getting in touch if we don't answer all the questions for you today. So what I'd like to just very briefly do is provide a bit of background on the Growth Partnership itself. So the Offshore Wind Growth Partnership was set up as part of the sector deal, and we've got a £100 million budget from the Offshore Wind Industry Council members to support the supply chain. And we've got a very clear focus on supporting increased UK content and UK projects, increasing exports, increasing economic value of the GVA, turnover of companies, and increasing UK IP to ensure sustainability of the UK supply chain. So very clear and sharp focus, and please keep that in mind when you're looking at any of the programmes that we're doing. That's what we're looking for in terms of the support that we're providing. The programme, as I say, is funded by Industry Council and delivered by ORE Catapult. There's two mechanisms that we use for delivering support, and we're actually launching one of each of those today. So firstly, business transformation is around supporting increasing the competitiveness of companies by providing expertise into companies. So that's either through things like the Sharing and Growth Programme or the West Programme that we'll hear a bit more about shortly. And those are about providing support into companies to make companies better, to improve them, to enable them to win more contracts and win more work. And that goes hand in hand with the grant funding activity that we also provide. And that's about injecting cash into companies where it will enable increased capability, increased capacity that will enable those companies to grow. So the two parts of it go hand in hand. We want to support companies financially, but we also want to ensure that funding is used as effectively as possible into companies that are also improving what they do. So those are the two sides of what we do. The projects we're running, announcing today, are part of a £15 million programme that we're running in 21-22. This covers the first £4.2 million worth of that, so 3.5 million on the grant funding and 700k on the business transformation side. I won't take up any more time. I'm keen to get on to the details. So I'm joined by my colleagues Claire Canning and Lynn McIntosh, who will respectively talk you through the grant funding and the business transformation aspects. We'll then come back, have a quick look at the future programmes, and then go into the Q&A. So I'll hand over to Claire.
Thanks, Andy. Welcome, everybody. So I'm going to give an overview of the Development Grants Funding Call that we launched last week. If we could move to the next slide, perfect. So just to give an overview of what the development grants are about. So this is the second development grants call that we've run, second to one later towards the end of last year. So for those that are familiar with that call, this one is very, very similar, very slight tweaks to the scope and eligibility, and I'll go through those. So the main objective for development grants is all about improving competitiveness, enhancing capability and increasing capacity for companies in the UK offshore wind supply chain, and really enabling them to have a transformative step change in growth. So ultimately, we're looking to fund projects that's going to help increase UK content, create UK jobs, increase company turnover and generate more exports in offshore wind. So projects can be anything from covering new investment in equipment and facilities, so capital spend, as well as more operational costs, so funding development and implementation of new processes and helping to bring new products and services to the market as well. So the total funding pot for this competition is 3.5 million. We'll be allocating grants of between 100,000 and 1 million, so that they'll be the eligible project costs. And we're looking for projects that will be between sort of 9 months and 24 months duration, depending on the size and scale of the projects. On the scope, I'll say it's pretty much open scope for companies, providing that there's an offshore wind application and that it will lead to an increase in supply chain growth. So we've put some sort of indicative scope areas there for you. So as I mentioned before, projects that are looking at investing in new equipment or new facilities that's going to help increase capacity or capability, particularly in manufacturing. So looking at implementing new processes to help increase competitiveness in the UK and lead to exports to global markets. Also looking at investing in technologies, products, services, technologies that's going to help improve operational performance, improve efficiency and improve reliability. What I will say is that for projects that are focused on technology development, we're really looking for companies that are projects that are going to lead to company growth. So in the short term and medium term, as well as long term. So any technology development focused projects should really be near to market or ready for commercialization. And as I mentioned, we're pretty open. So any other activity not covered here that will help to grow the company and help economic growth within the supply chain. So if there are any questions about scope, if there's anything unsure about, then do get in touch with us and we can clarify that for you. On eligibility, again, pretty open. And I should say all this information is basically in the scope and guidance document, so I'll try not to go through everything word for word. What I will do is highlight some of the areas in bold here that are new additions since the last call. So ultimately, we're looking to help companies that are registered in the UK, could be any size, as long as the company has a clear intent and ambition to grow in offshore wind. If you are an organisation that is in receipt of OWGP funding from a competition launched in the last 12 months, you will not be eligible to apply for funding in this round. However, we will be launching 2 more calls this year, one in an innovation call in August, I believe, and another development grants call in November. So there will be further opportunities to apply for funding, and we'll come on to that later on. Again, for companies that have already submitted a proposal to OWGP that was unsuccessful, we are happy for that to be resubmitted again, as long as it's the first resubmission, and providing that it has been tweaked, taking into account the feedback that's been provided from the last round. And ultimately, I'll probably say this again and again, but we're really looking for companies that have a clear intent to grow business in terms of company turnover, creating jobs, exports, and developing IP. So those are our sort of key criteria there. And of course, obviously we're providing a grant, but we'll be looking for companies to provide a match contribution to the project costs. And that can be a combination of in-kind contribution or cash contribution as well. And it would be a 50% match that we're looking for. We're looking for companies to only make one submission to OWGP as a lead organisation, And of course, we're looking for companies to specify the additionality of this funding. So why would this project not take place without OWGP support? Why is that needed? Okay, next slide. On project team, in addition to the lead applicant or the lead organisation, we do encourage the inclusion of other project partners or organisation to help with the delivery of this project and you know, wherever this is appropriate. So project partners could be anything from other UK businesses, universities, academic institutions, research organisations, catapults, providing they are UK based and they bring added value to the project. So if you are looking to bid in or submit an application and you're looking for suitable project partners, but you're unsure, that is something that we might be able to help with. We may be able to look for appropriate companies for you to partner with. So do get in touch with us, and we can also direct you to your representative within your regional cluster as well, if that would be helpful. We may consider overseas delivery partners or project partners if there is a specific need for a particular capability that doesn't exist within the UK, but you should provide the rationale or the justification within your application, and do get in touch with us if this is the case, and we can discuss. I think, yeah, it's important to clarify that unlike Innovate UK, the Growth Partnership will contract with and allocate funding to the lead organisation only. So we won't allocate funds to all different project partners. Project partners will be considered as subcontractors to the lead organisation and will need to recoup their costs from the lead organisation as part of the project. Okay, so how to apply? So the application process for development grant call is 2 stages, and this is really enable us to determine eligibility early on, manage the volume of applications, notify you as early as possible, and for us to be able to identify the most appropriate assessors if needed, and bring in independent experts as required. So the call opened last week. It's a 4-week expression of interest stage. So the deadline for that is on Friday, the 18th of June. And those that have been successful in the stage 1 will be shortlisted and invited to submit stage 2 application. It'll take possibly any 3 to 4 weeks for us to assess your applications, and we'll hope to notify you by the Friday the 16th of July. Where possible, we try to provide feedback to applicants, but depending on the volume of applications we receive, that might not always be possible. For the successful stage 1 applicants, you will receive a stage 2 business plan template to complete and submit by the Friday the 27th of August. And those will be assessed internally by OWGP, the board of directors, and also by independent assessors where applicable. And just to reiterate, only successful stage 1 applicants will be invited to participate in stage 2. In terms of the application process and the application form, we've moved to something a little bit different this time. So previously we had used PDFs. This time we are using Microsoft Forms, so an online form for our application. You can download this from the website along with the scope and guidance document if you haven't already. On the right hand side is a picture of what the form looks like. And there is some guidance there as well on how to complete the form. What I will say is that when filling out the form, you're not able to save your answers and return to the application. So what we recommend is that you copy out the questions from the scope and guidance document, draft responses to those questions separately, and then paste them into the application form once you're ready to submit. You'll be able to save a PDF copy of responses after submission, and you'll receive a confirmation email as well that it has been received. For the application questions, so the application form is split into 5 separate sections, And I've tried to match them up with the assessment criteria that you can find in your scope and guidance document as well. So the 5 sections are essentially a bit of company information, contact details. Section 2 is all about background to your business and understanding a bit about your ambition for growth in offshore wind. Section 3 is about the project. So what does the project do? How does it address challenges or any barriers to growth? How will you deliver the project and ensure effective delivery of outputs? Section 4 is about project finances, so understanding what the breakdown of the costs are going to be, understanding any project partners and justification for any subcontractors within your project. And section 5 is looking at impact and additionality, so really trying to understand how is this project going to accelerate or facilitate growth within the industry, and how does it align with OWGP KPIs. So again, looking at jobs, forecast turnover increase, creation of IP and exports, and if there's any other additional benefits and impacts there as well. And I've tried to, as I say, line these up with the assessment criteria within the guidance. So section 2 is made up of understanding the company background and relevance to this call. That's worth 10%. The understanding that the challenge in the market opportunities were 20%. Project suitability and approach to delivery is also 20%. Understanding the value for money is worth 20%, and probably the highest weighted assessment criteria is looking at that impact and additionality piece. So how is it really going to facilitate growth? If there's any questions on any of the assessment criteria or the sections, do let me know. In terms of timescales, so we've kind of already gone through this. The stage 1 application deadline is on the 18th of June at 5 p.m. And we'll be looking to notify successful applicants by mid-July. At that point, you will, if you're successful, you will receive your template for stage 2, and we're looking for the submission deadline will be 6 weeks after that, so on 27th of August. We will try and get all applicants notified on or before the end of October, so that we can sort out any kind of contracting, grant award documentation for projects ready to start on or before 1st of January next year. And this is just a sort of recap of the submission. So prior to submitting any applications, please do make sure that you're registered on the OWGP website. It only takes a couple of minutes to fill that out. As I say, we recommend that you provide draft responses to your application questions before then putting them directly into the online application form, and then make sure that you click submit. And you will receive email acknowledgement to confirm that we have received your application. And there's links to both the guidance document and the application form as well in that slide. Very quickly, sort of post the assessment period, we will be looking to assess internally for stage 1. And this will enable us to determine eligibility and assess requirements for stage 2. The stage 2 business plans I've already kind of mentioned will be reviewed internally by the board and independently where appropriate. Assessors will be asked to score applications based on the evaluation criteria that's in the scope and guidance. And you can see the more detailed information about the weighting of scores there. You'll be notified of any award decisions or assessment decisions via email, and you'll receive, particularly for stage 2, you will receive feedback shortly afterwards. For those that are successful in the sort of delivery phase of the project, we'll be looking for the applicant to provide a sort of internal champion to liaise and engage with OWGP, sort of managing the project and making sure there's enough internal resource to deliver that project. We ask companies to submit a project management plan. We have a template that we will share with you and that sort of details out everything from resourcing, forecast costs, milestones, deliverables, and making sure that you report this to OWGP on a regular basis so that we can see how things are progressing, and if there's any successful results, major business milestones that we should be aware of. We're very keen to publicise and promote what we're doing and the companies that we're working with. So we do ask that companies are open to publicity about participating with the OWGP, so that we can generate case studies and showcase some of our exciting projects. And as I mentioned, looking for projects to be ready to start on or before January next year with all your matched funds in place, everything ready to go. And just one final thing on the funding. So this is a grant funding competition. So this will be, any funding will be issued in the form of a grant, and that will be paid on all eligible project costs net of VAT. And for any companies that are successful, we will provide criteria on what the eligible project costs are, and I think they are detailed in the scope and guidance document as well. Oh, and I think that's me. Thanks, Lynn. Happy to take questions after this section.
Thanks very much, Claire. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lynn McIntosh, and I'm the other programme manager working in OWGP and focusing predominantly on the business transformation programmes. And today I'm going to provide a bit of an overview on the WEST programme, the Wind Expert Support Toolkit programme. First of all, I'll start with going through the aims of the programme, talk a little bit about who we're targeting with the programme, and then talk on the scope of the activity itself. We'll then go on to talk a little bit about the eligibility criteria for the programme, how to apply, and also assessment and timescales. Okay, so the Wind Expert Support Toolkit is one of our foundation elements within our business transformation programmes, and provides companies with needs-focused insight and market intelligence into the offshore wind sector. It's a relatively short entry point activity, providing access to market intelligence, insight and specialist advice in offshore wind. The advice that's provided is targeted to the individual companies that apply, so it's not just generic information, it will be scoped appropriately to answer questions specifically about your organisation. And as part of the delivery, companies would expect to receive an information pack which would detail in it all of the information pertaining to the needs that they'd identified in the application, but also some recommendations and next steps. And really it's seen to be sort of a foundational element within our business transformation programmes, which companies can then build upon with other programmes that we will be offering and currently offer, which Andy will mention later on. The main aim of the WEST programme is to support companies to be more competitive within the offshore wind supply chain. So that's by providing some structured business improvement activities, but also by encouraging cross-sector engagement. So working with companies who may be in the offshore wind sector and also companies who aren't currently in the offshore wind sector. In addition to that, the WEST programme is a very good opportunity for OWGP to understand the needs of the supply chain, and we use our engagement in the WEST programme to continually inform and shape our future ideas on our business transformation programmes. This opportunity, we're targeting engagement with 60 to 70 supply chain companies, and we have a budget of £700,000. So who are we targeting? Who can apply to the WEST programme? Well, actually, it's quite open. We're looking for companies of all different shapes and sizes and with all different backgrounds. So right from startup companies, very, very small and micro SMEs, up to established UK organisations who maybe work in other sectors, and including companies who are already active in the offshore wind sector, may already be doing really good stuff in the sector, but maybe need a little bit of further insight or intelligence to further accelerate their growth. really what we're looking for though is companies to be ambitious and want to work in offshore wind, essentially aligning with our KPIs, which include increasing turnover of UK companies in offshore wind, increasing export opportunities, intellectual property and jobs. So I mentioned earlier that the WEST programme is a needs-focused intervention activity. What do we mean by that? Well, within the application itself, we've identified typical needs that companies from all different stages of maturity in the sector may encounter. So this may include some of those which I'm bringing up onto the screen. What we ask is that companies identify within the application form their top 3 from our list of 14 needs. And they could be anything from defining your product or service value proposition for offshore wind, or understanding and supporting a marketing strategy for offshore wind, right the way through to understanding how your products and services might be best fitted into the sector. So lots of different needs there, and again, as Claire had mentioned, for development grants, there is a lot of information in our scope and guidance document, which identifies all of these needs and allows you to read through it in more detail. So what we're asking for interested companies to do is to make a submission of an expression of interest to on our online form. And that is identifying needs that you might have that align with those that we've provided, or indeed telling us what it is that you're looking for specifically. Within the application form, you're asked to specify your top 3 needs and the additionality that providing those needs would address within your organisation. As part of the delivery, and given that we are hoping to support lots of companies over a relatively modest budget, we will endeavour to support a minimum of 2 of your 3 identified needs. This will be delivered by expert consultants and delivery partners who we work with closely. We will be monitoring successful applicants all the way through the programme, and also tracking progress in line with our KPIs, which Claire mentioned previously. And just as a reminder, that's increasing jobs, exports, IP and turnover of UK companies in the UK. The programme itself is delivered over a 6 to 8 week period, and applicant companies would need to ensure that they have suitable bandwidth in order to support the ongoing activities as a condition of being granted support. So who is eligible to apply? Well, we're looking for UK registered companies of any size. But critically, we're looking for companies who have a clear intent to diversify their business into offshore wind, or to demonstrate enhancement or accelerated growth in offshore wind if they're already in the sector. We would like companies to be able to clearly articulate why they'd like to engage in offshore wind, and understand their own needs and also their deficiencies. So we're looking for companies to be a little bit introspective and be able to reflect on where they currently are against where they would like to be. As part of the support, you are going to have to share information with both ourselves and our expert delivery consultants. That's the only way in which we can adequately help you. And also, as part of the application, we need companies to demonstrate how the activity will impact their business. Similarly to what Claire mentioned earlier on, we are expecting companies to make applications to the WEST programme who have not been awarded business transformation support by OWGP in the last 12 months. Okay, so if companies who have already applied to the WEST programme in our pilot, they wouldn't be eligible to apply to this WEST programme, but we will be assessing some of those companies to be providing further support based on the outcomes of their WEST pilot. So how to apply? Again, we've moved to a slightly different format of application this time around. We've moved to a Microsoft Forms application, And very similarly to what Claire said already, we strongly recommend that you read through the scope and guidance document, which provides lots of detailed information on the questions that we're going to ask, but we'd also recommend that you make a draft of your responses prior to submitting and typing them into the Microsoft Forms, just to ensure that you don't lose anything, as you will not be able to save as you go along. The questions are a blend of text box answers, drop downs, and also numerical responses. And there is a clear indication in the scope and guidance of what is required from each question, and if there are any character maximums, so maximum word count, for example, that's all specified there too. You will be able to save a copy of your application once you have submitted it. There will be a button at the bottom which says you can save as PDF, and we would recommend that you do that, but you will receive a receipt acknowledgement of your application after you've submitted. If you have any questions about the application process, please do reach out to us, and we're more than happy to help and support you. Just thinking about then the assessment, and again, we've tried to follow the same format between Claire and myself for presentation. There are 5 sections in the application form itself. Section 1 is really just about understanding your contact details and your company information, and that is of course unassessed, but for background information only. Sections 2 to 5 are assessed. Section 2 is about you telling us about your company and your plans for growth in the offshore wind sector. And really we've got some guidance there on what it is that we expect to be answered in response. Section 3 is about identifying and articulating your company needs against our list, or indeed identifying ones that aren't on our list, and that's absolutely possible too. The 4th section is all about understanding your company and site commitment to improvement and growth. And finally, we would like to understand how you envisage the support from OWGP will support economic growth of your organisation. What we do in the application is take into consideration the fact that everyone is starting from a different place. So we do appreciate and understand that some companies may have more of a background understanding of offshore wind than others, and we have taken that into consideration for this round of application. So that won't be to your detriment if you don't have a huge background in offshore wind. We are taking that into consideration with the levels of support that we will provide. Generally speaking, the support provided will be between 3 and 10 days of expert delivery partner support. The timescales that we are working to, the applications themselves are open and have been open since last week, but just for everyone's benefit and understanding, we anticipate to assess the applications in waves, and we'll have wave closure dates as identified on the slide. So we'll have 5 wave closure dates, at which point all applications made up until that date will be assessed. So for example, if you made an application on the 18th of June, your application would be assessed on or after the 25th of June. You would then expect to hear of the outcome of the application assessment within 4 weeks of your application. And indicatively, we would expect to start the wave on the month following that, so as outlined there. The one caveat that we put to that is that we do expect to receive a high volume of applications, and dependent on the quality and volume of applications that we do receive, we may have to shuffle wave start dates a little bit, but we will keep successful applicants in the loop about that as and where that occurs. But indicatively, we have waves closing, application waves closing in June, end of June, end of August, October, December, and end of February next year, and indicative programme start dates in beginning of August, October, December, February, and April. Okay.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Lynn, and thanks Claire for that. Yes, there's lots of questions coming through, so please keep putting those into the Q&A box, and we'll come to those in a second. While you're thinking of questions, if I can just run through the other kind of current and future opportunities. So on the business transformation side, there is a regional WEST programme currently being run with additional support from the North East Local Enterprise Partnership. So you can apply to that separately, and that provides a similar kind of service, a slightly lighter version than the National WEST programme, but very similar, and you can apply to that directly from the OWGP website. At the same time, we're also running the Sharing and Growth programme on a rolling basis. The Sharing and Growth Programme is a more intense programme. It's something that's been very successful in the aerospace sector. And what we're looking for there is companies which have a turnover of 5 million plus or approaching 5 million plus, and staff of at least 45 or certainly approaching 45. So it's those slightly larger companies. The reason for that is that the support provided through Sharing and Growth is aimed at supporting initially the leadership and taking a holistic company approach, and embeds people into the company to work with the leadership team to support them in terms of increasing operational performance and then competitiveness. So it's quite an intensive program that works best with slightly larger companies, but it's worked exceptionally well in the aerospace sector, and we're keen to see it used more in offshore wind. So do get in touch if you want more information about that, and we're happy to chat about that on a one-to-one basis with appropriate companies. Going forward, I talked about the £15 million funding for the 21-22 budget that we have. What we're trying to do is try to get a kind of regular beat of grant funding going forward. So we have this development grant round kicking off now. There'll be another one in 6 months, and we're going to intersperse those with a innovation grant funding. The distinction being the development grants very much focused at supporting company growth around capacity and capability. The innovation grants are looking at supporting companies with technology and development of that side of things, so improving what they've got in terms of products and services. So we'll intersperse those, and we will try and hit a regular kind of 6-monthly beat on the development grants. We'll run the business transformation as a rolling programs. So as Lynn explained about the West programme, and also about the Sharing and Growth programme, which is, as I say, is also open. And then as further funding comes in, we'll announce further calls as we go into following years. So that's the kind of overall programme that's going. The one coming up, the innovation grants, just to trail that. If you weren't sure about putting something into this call or into the innovation grant, the innovation grant will open in August. Is a £3 million project, but a smaller grant size, so between 25 and 99k. And as I say, that's the distinction being that that's much more about technology and product services development as opposed to the company growth that the development grants covers. So you'll see more information as we approach those dates. So plenty going on. I do want to get onto the Q&As. There's been a lot of questions coming in. And if you've got others, do type those in. And between ourselves, hopefully we can answer those. So just looking through the questions, I'm just trying to see what hasn't been answered.
You've been busy, Andy. You've been answering a lot. I was writing down some answers, but you've been very quick and answered a lot of the questions. There's one question there from Lynn that I can answer about the match contribution. So Lynn has asked, can the company's 50% contribution be all in kind? I would say yes, it depends on the nature of the project and the size of the project. So for example, if it was a £200,000 project and you wanted your 50% contribution would be £100,000 of labour costs, for example, that would be fine. It's just something that we would assess when it comes to the sort of additionality and the value for money. So the answer is yes, but it sort of does depend on the nature of the project.
There's another question here from Caroline. Thanks for your question, Caroline. So for the West programme, does the grant cover expert costs or does it also cover company costs? Just to be clear, so the West programme, that would be OWGP identifying and contracting with an appropriate expert delivery partner to support you as a company. So there wouldn't be any costs associated with your engagement other than your own costs, coming to meetings and engaging in the activities. You wouldn't have to identify what those costs are to your organisation but we obviously we would be contracting specifically with our expert delivery partners there. So there's no changing money changing hands associated with the waste programme for successful companies. Hope that answers your question.
Thanks, Lynn. Shall I take the question on de minimis versus GBA funding? So OWGP is currently 100% a private sector funding. So state aid doesn't apply in that sense. So it's neither de minimis or GBA, it's private sector funding for that. The only exception to that is the Northeast West programme, because that's got funding from the Northeast LEP. That is counted as de minimis support, but it's a relatively low support, so I'm not expecting that to be an issue for most companies. So we've run out of questions in the boxes. I did put some answers in the as we went along, so I'm hoping that people are able to read those. And if I haven't answered the questions in the text, please do put in a follow-up one. And if anyone's got any further questions, we're happy to take them now, or do get in touch.
I think it is worth saying as well that what we could do is when we circulate the slides and the recording, we can circulate this recorded Q&A as well, and sort of create an FAQ sheet for everybody.
That's great. I'm taking it as a compliment to Lynn and Claire that they've covered off so much detail that there aren't any questions. The guidance is also is pretty detailed in terms of what you need to do as well. There's one more question from Roxy on innovation. Claire, do you want to? Yeah,
sure. So to be completely honest, we haven't really defined the criteria for the innovation call yet. It will be focused more on sort of the development of products and services in technology and development of IP. It may be a little bit more sort of targeted scope, sort of tied potentially to industry challenges or innovation priorities. And it will be kind of smaller scale grants. So in the next couple of months, that's something that we'll be defining, and we can send out further information once we've got a bit more information about that.
Thanks, Claire. Okay, if there's no more questions, I'm happy to call it a day on the webinar. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds left, and Lynn and Claire, if you've got any other final comments that you want to add.
I think just worth mentioning, because I think it's a question that we do tend to get asked quite a lot, is will the presentation material be available? And yes, the answer is yes, we will make the presentation available, as well as the recording of today's session. So you'll be able to access that on our YouTube channel, and we'll also put a link to the slides from today's session on the website as well, under both the waste and the development grants sections of our website. So you should be able to find that in the coming days.
Okay, thanks, Lynn. Okay, well, I'm gonna leave it there. I don't intend to take any more of anyone's time if we don't need to. So the information is on the website. Do let us know if you do have any further questions relating to that. We're looking forward to some fantastic applications. It's always really exciting to see all the great companies and great ideas coming through. So really looking forward to that, and wish you best of luck in terms of the applications going forward. Lynn, Claire, thank you very much, and thanks to all the attendees for joining us today. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.